On today's episode of the Locked On Texans Podcast, Bobby, we've heard it all before. You ain't Sunshine Anderson, but this time we are wondering, how can you fix those second half issues in the second half so the Houston Texans can get a win?
You are Locked On Texans, your daily podcast on the Houston Texans. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Battle Red Nation! I'm credentialed media member and Texans football analyst John, some sports guy Hickman, alongside the man with the big hat and the even bigger smile, also Texans credentialed media member Brian Big Sarge Barfield. Thank you for making us your first listen of the day. I know a lot of y'all are gearing up right now, gassing up, ready to hit 45. Some of y'all may already be down there. Some of y'all may already be, y'all been there for a week or so, ready to see your Texans take on the Dallas Cowboys. But thank you guys for making us your first listen of the day. You are a part of the Locked On Texans and the Locked On Podcast Network family, your team every day. And as always, shout out to our everydayers from the Himalayas. Today we're talking about Bobby Slowik reading the room. I think he understands it's all on his shoulders and he has to be better. So as you asked an amazing question last Thursday, and it's time to talk about it. Also, who runs Texas? Who runs Texas? And that's because of
Beyonce.
Shout out to Beyonce. You know what? Hopefully Netflix can get their ish together, because what you're not gonna do is mess up and buff when Beyonce's on the screen. So they better get their stuff together. Joking about the Jake Paul and Mike Tyson fiasco, but DeMario Overshawn talked about how Dallas still runs Texas. And so we'll talk about that. But then we'll dive into the YouTube comment, Sarge. We haven't talked to our YouTubers in a very long time.
Yeah.
And so I think it's a perfect time, considering the game that Houston will play this Monday night. But also, guys, today's episode is brought to you by Hillsdale College. Go right now to hillsdale.edu/lockedon to enroll. There's no cost, and it's easy to get started. Big Sarge, let's dive into what Bobby Slowik had to say. Basically mentioning, listen, he has been inconsistent in the second half. That has led to, of course, the Houston Texans, and you said it, 19 possessions, no TDs. Great question that you asked, and I want to just say this. I think Bobby knows he's the issue right now. Sounded like he took some accountability, which I have to give a lot of credit to the Houston Texans coaching staff for doing so as of lately. I think he's been in his head, and honestly, it seems like he's been in his head since Stephon Diggs arrived, because of that caliber of player and receiver, labeled diva receiver. If you remember, your question talked about getting Stephon Diggs involved a lot. And that, I think, has led to him being removed from getting the flow of the offense altogether involved, and that's been a little bit jeopardized. But more importantly, he's taking blame and putting it all on his shoulders for these second-half performances.
Yeah. John, when it comes to Bobby Slowik and what I hear from him on a weekly basis and what I've heard from him the last four to 5 weeks, is a coach who knows what he needs to do, knows what needs to happen, but hasn't really just put that plan into action. Like, it's one thing to say something, John. It's another thing to do it. There's a lot of people who, New Year's resolution is going to be to work out. It's one thing to say it going into the new year, but it's another thing to actually do it. And so with Bobby, it's one of those things where, Bobby, you keep telling us the same thing over and over and over again, but it's time to actually put that into action. And you've heard from CJ Stroud 2 weeks in a row. 1 week he said, I got to get back to having fun. The next week he says, I'm not a game manager, I'm a game changer. Those are signs and telltales to the offensive coordinator that something needs to change. We need to get back to doing what we were doing. And I asked Bobby, does he take it personal? And he said, yes, he does take it personal. Not only does he take it personal, but the players take it personal. And so what I want is for Bobby to start having fun again. Like, every time he's come to the podium the last couple of weeks, he just looks stressed out. And I'm like, Bobby, relax, bro. Relax. Just go out there and have fun. And if this is your final year with the Houston Texans, you need to go out in a blaze of glory. Just have fun, Bobby, because I honestly believe, John, that if Bobby Slowik gets back to having fun, because look, when you look around the league, John, it looks like some of these offensive coordinators, they have fun calling the games. The Detroit Lions against the Jacksonville Jaguars, they look like they had fun. He had fun, calling that game. When you look at the game between the LA Chargers and the Cincinnati Bengals, they had fun. Those offensive coordinators had fun calling those games. John, you've played football, but you've also played Madden. John, how fun is it when you're playing Madden, calling the plays like, oh, I know he ain't gonna stop this, and even if he does,
very fun.
I'm gonna give him the same look, but give him a hot route.
Very, and you know what? Not even Madden for me right now. It's college football.
Yeah.
So
John, that's all I'm asking is for Bobby to get back to having fun. Last year, even though they went through some lulls and even though they went through some had some inefficiencies at certain times, they still always look like they're having fun. So, John, the one way to get back to having fun is to go up against a 3-6 Dallas Cowboys team with a very weak defense. And you can also have fun when you got a 6'4" wide receiver who can do any and everything that you need him to do.
Sarge, I want to ask you this question before we kind of move on and talk about Overshawn's comments, though, because when I listened to what Bobby had to say, this is my takeaways. Is something off with the play calls? Accountability there.
Yeah.
Are we doing something different? Accountability there. We're not executing the same. Again, I think that's a little bit on the players, and I agree with him because I'm not putting everything on his shoulders for the Detroit Lions game. I thought that there were some things we saw from the players from the Lions and Jets game that they could have done better. But the biggest comment that he made, it becomes a mental roadblock, and that's what we're working through. And I do believe that it's been a mental roadblock for this team for 5 weeks now. We've seen them go into the halves with some good energy, with the lead Sarge, but then they come out and they're flatter than a Sprite soda that's been sitting out for 2 days.
Yeah.
And so for Bobby, yeah, I think there's a roadblock that Dallas can allow him to get past. The roadblock could be, you know what, I got to step aside and let my quarterback, who, again, at Ohio State, he had 3 1,000-yard receivers, essentially, with Gary Wilson, Jackson, and Jigma Smith, and Chris Olave. So I got to allow, with Nico Collins coming back, I got to allow him to just sling the rock out there.
Yeah.
Right? Because once those players' morale gets high and I see them operating in the place of space, then I could do better. So, Sarge, when we look at the mental roadblock for Bobby, is it just getting out of his own way, or because we've talked about it, like, does he need more help? Should Gerard Johnson get more involved? What really is it for Bobby? Because this is a game where, listen, I think if you go into this second half and put up another donut, it ain't going to be sweet for you after that game. It ain't sweet for you now. Not against a struggling defense, last of the league in almost every category, down to their second-string quarterback, third-string quarterback, depending on whether we see Trey Lance or not. This is a game where there is literally no excuse.
Well, John, I don't know if it's so much mental roadblock, and I understand what he's saying, but I don't know if it's more such a
mental for him.
But so here's the thing, though, John. Here's the thing. So you and I are married, right? Not to each other, but we both have significant others, right?
Thank you for saying that part.
Right. You and I are married to our significant others, correct?
Correct.
So if you have a problem with picking up your clothes, right, off like picking up your clothes or folding up your clothes or whatever the case may be, taking out the trash, you could tell your wife over and over and over again, I'm going to do it, babe. I promise I'm going to get better and I'm going to get better at it. But then every other day she got to say, you still got the clothes on the ground.
Pick your socks up.
Yeah, you still, like, when you going to put your clothes up, I folded them, put your clothes up, right? Or, hey, look, you said you was going to take out the trash. It's trash day. Why I got to keep telling you the same thing over and over? You can say, I'm going to do better. But until you do better, that's when the progress happens. And so, Bobby, mentally, if you're saying it's a mental roadblock, Bobby, then maybe this isn't the job for you. Now, I'm not advocating for Bobby Slowik to lose his job, but what I'm saying is if you mentally can't get through it, then maybe you need to take some time off and then leave the game and then come back. I'm just being serious, John, because you can say it.
So you're saying Bobby needs a break. He needs
Bobby need a bye week. Bobby might need a bye week, John, but still, it's one thing to say it. It's another thing to do it. So yes, Bobby, don't let your words become empty. Put your words into action. And so mentally get yourself together and do what you need to do. And listen, I'm not trying to criticize Bobby Slowik, the person. I'm criticizing Bobby Slowik, the offensive coordinator,
right,
and what he has been doing in the second half of these games. Because yes, the players can do better, but you could put them in a position to do better, which is what he said. I got to put them in a position to be better. Just like D'Amico says, we got to put our players in a position to be better. So Bobby, you got to start putting them in a position to be better. One thing that I think, John, real quickly is I think that Bobby Slowik is one of those people who doesn't like to fail, so he overthinks things and then he fails. Just stop overthinking it, Bobby.
PFF. Let's talk about who runs Texas, DeMario Overshawn. We'll talk about that and more on the Locked On Texans podcast. Time is our most precious commodity, so don't waste it scrolling through the same mind-numbing content for hours and hours. Sometimes we get on TikTok and scroll, and it's just no brain activity going on. We're just scrolling. So how can you spend your time wisely to improve yourself? Our sponsors, Hillsdale College, is offering more than 40 free online courses, including Constitution 101, the meaning and history of the Constitution, the Great American Story, a Land of Hope, and a brand new documentary-style course, Marxism, Socialism, and Communism. They got it all for free at hillsdale.edu/courses. /locked on. All of Hillsdale courses are self-paced, so you can start wherever and tune in whenever. Plus, you can go deeper with readings, quizzes, and discussions, or you can just enjoy the lectures. Go to hillsdale.edu/locked on right now to enroll. Again, guys, the best part about this, there's no cost, and it's easy to get started. That's hillsdale.edu/locked on to register. Again, hillsdale.edu/locked on to register. Also, Texan fans, if you're looking to get in on the action for Monday night's game, Prize Picks is the place to be. Prize Picks makes daily fantasy sports simple and exciting. You pick more or less on stat projections, and you can win up to 100 times your money. This week, keep an eye on CJ Stroud. Prize Picks has him at just 12.5 rushing yards with his playmaking ability. And I think a game where this Dallas D-line will get very undisciplined. He could hit that number early in the game. Or if you're just watching Joe Mixon and his line, he has 17.5 receiving yards, and that's a great one to consider as well. He has been active in the passing game lately. So here's how it works. Just pick 2 to 6 player stats projection, and you'll pick whether they'll go more or less than those projections. It's simple, and you can cash out big. Sign up today and get $50 instantly when you play $5 with code Locked On NFL. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Prize Picks also offers weekly promotions that can lead to big payouts like Taco Tuesday. Each Tuesday, Prize Picks discounts select player projections up to 25% to provide even more value for your lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. Welcome back, Battle Red Nation. Big Sarge, I like Overshawn specifically because he is a UT product. And so I'm glad to see him having some success in the NFL after essentially missing his rookie year. This is essentially his rookie year. But, he just recently said, this is the battle of Texas. Bragging rights are on the line, and he firmly believes the Cowboys are the flagship team in the Lone Star State. Even though it's a down year for us, we still run the state of Texas. Sarge, you're a Dallas Cowboys
He also
fan.
said that in the article, he said something to the effect of the Texans are the little brother, I think.
He said that as well. And here's the thing. You're a Dallas Cowboy fan, so I know you know the pain of this, but since 2022, when the Texans became a franchise 22 years ago, as a franchise, they just were able to start drinking legally. But who has more playoff wins?
Oh, I think it's the Texans 5-4.
It's the Texans. Yeah. So I think these comments are on brand for Cowboys players, especially the players that are new to the Dallas Cowboys or maybe grew up watching the Dallas Cowboys. Like, this is something that I would have expected Michael Parsons to say his second or third year in the NFL. But for Overshawn, man, I don't know if you have enough snaps in the NFL right now to even say that. And also considering, your franchise is they have Jerry Jones that's been ruining any possibility of that team actually running the NFL, let alone the state of Texas. So, yeah, the Cowboy fans are probably the more known fans worldwide throughout all sports. You got the Cowboys, you got the Yankees, you got the Dodgers. Those three franchises, have all of like the apparel that everybody recognizes no matter where they are. But in terms of football, like, take everything in the history out of it. Football, y'all got to win a playoff game to talk.
Yeah. Well, John, I put it like this. You ever had a 5-hour energy drink?
I have.
You notice how that 5-hour energy drink, as soon as you take it, it gives you that quick burst of energy and makes you feel like you can do everything that you need to do. Yeah. But you ever notice when it runs out, what happens? You crash.
Crash and burn.
And I think that's what Demarion Overshawn, linebacker for the Dallas Cowboys, has done. He's taking a 5-hour energy drink. And don't get me wrong, I liked him. I got a chance to speak with him at the combine, the NFL combine. And I thought that this young man is a really good guy. He's from Texas. He's been able to play. He played college football in Texas, and he's able to play for the Dallas Cowboys. So he's never had to leave the state of Texas, which is a good thing because I love Texas as well. So, John, that 5-hour energy drink will give you that boost that you need initially, but it's going to wear off and you're going to crash. And so these comments that Demarion Overshawn made is like a 5-hour energy drink. Yes, it's going to give some type of morale to the Dallas Cowboys players and let them know, hey, look, we're still here. We're not going to just give up on the season, even though we're 3-6 and our average margin of defeat at home is large. We give up a lot of points when we play at home. We don't defend our home turf. We play terrible at home. Yeah, but hey, man, that 5-hour energy drink gonna rally us up. Yeah, but you're gonna crash, my guy. You're gonna crash, Demarion Overshawn, because as much as I love the Dallas Cowboys and have loved the Dallas Cowboys since 1975, look, we just call a spade a spade. And John, both of us are from the H. We keep it a buck. We keep it 100 right here on the Locked On Texans podcast. Hey, the Houston Texans have a better team than the Dallas Cowboys. Demarion Overshawn, I know that you're trying to give your teammates a boost, but what you've done is provided locker room talk for the Houston Texans, who have a better team than you, who is on the verge of having a breakout game if they could ever get those second half woes together. You don't want to give them that type of energy to come into this game and blow you all out. It's bad enough that Micah Parsons and CJ Stroud have a very good relationship and they talk trash to each other. And Micah Parsons, the last thing that he wants to do is to lose to CJ Stroud because he knows he's going to have to hear it forever. And now you're just adding on to it. So now you're saying, hey, we're still the big brothers in Texas. We still run Texas. It's all fun and games until you got to look on the other side and look into CJ Stroud's eyes and say, all right, I'm ready to play. And CJ's like, hey, my guy, watch me move you out of position and let Nico come this way, or let Tank come this way, or let Joe Mixon come this way. Like, you don't have.
He's gonna become a target in this game. I think they're gonna pick at him. I mean, he does some things in this game that will hopefully, if Bobby and CJ on the same page with their playmakers, that Houston can exploit.
They don't have enough, John. Like, you're talking to trash playing the middle linebacker position. You know what you're doing to Kalen Carson, the rookie cornerback that has to hold Tank Dell on the other side. You know what you're doing him. You know what you're doing to Donovan Wilson.
That's like when your boy talking and you gotta shut up.
Right. Like, hey, look, John. Hey, yo, we ready. No, we not ready. You may be ready. I'm not ready. I don't want this type of smoke. Yeah, me and my boys, we gonna come, we gonna bring you that smoke. No, I don't smoke, my guy. I'm not a smoker. So no, what you're doing is you're putting your team in a bad situation. Because, John, not only are you putting your defensive teammates in a bad position, you're putting your offensive players in a bad position too. Because now, everybody on that Houston Texans defense can read, John. So now Azeez Al-Shaair has read that. Derek Stingley has read that. Kalen Bullock has read that. Danielle Hunter has read that. D'Amico Ryans has read that.
And all of those names that you just said are, some of the Texans' top players, of course, head coach. And I put it like this. Let's say if Dallas just has a miraculous special game defensively, right? That's where Overshawn plays at linebacker on that side of the ball. Okay, y'all go out there. Let's say y'all pitch a shutout, right? Okay, on the opposite side, we got to worry about Cooper Rush. We got to worry about 45-year-old Zeke. Rico's playing some good football for Dallas. I think he's averaging about 4.3 yards per carry. But that offensive line ain't the best.
Nobody's so they got to go.
Yeah, they got
Tolbert.
They got to go up against Tim Settle, Danielle Hunter, who we just saw what he did against Penei Sewell, and he's one of the best tackles in the NFL. So Jake Paul and Mike Tyson had a bigger game in AT&T Stadium than the Dallas Cowboys has had all year. What are we talking about here? And if we look at sports, all around, Dallas ain't been the big brother. I mean, you gotta look at the Astros being the big brother over everybody in the league. So it's just like the bravado that comes with Dallas players and some Dallas fans. To me, it's just like, okay, some of those memories are great, but what have you done for me lately? And the only thing the Dallas Cowboys has provided for us lately, and I'm sorry, Sarge, this may hurt a little bit, provide content. What's going to happen with Michael Parsons in the offseason? When is what's your coach? Mike McCarthy going to get fired? Jerry bringing a helicopter down and
Zach Martin going into free agent. Offensive guard Zach Martin going into free agent.
Look at that. Players talking about how much of a clown show it is at times in the circus and how winning isn't prioritized. Dallas, Dak getting his contract and then he's out for the year and he's also playing bad when he was playing. So it's just like everything we talked about for the Dallas Cowboys for the past 18 months has been all negative.
Yep.
Compared to the Houston Texans, there's been some light at the end of the tunnel. So,
and they're number one in their division. So, when you're number one in your division and, you could potentially end up being a number 3 seed in the AFC playoffs. Like the Houston Texans have playoff aspirations. The Dallas Cowboys are looking to see if they can get into that top 5 and who they're going to pick in the draft.
Let's dive into the YouTube comments, guys. I don't think we've talked to the YouTubers since Big Sarge has been on the show. So we gotta dive into the YouTube comments. I think it's gonna be a fun one. We got some good comments, a lot of pissed off fans. So we'll do that and more on the other side. However, Texan fans, I know a lot of you guys are looking to get in on some of the betting action for this game. And so today's episode is brought to you by Locked On brought to you by FanDuel, America's number one sports book. It's the perfect time to get in on the action as Houston heads into another quote unquote exciting matchup. It will be a good matchup. Still the state of Texas, the Texas Bowl, but FanDuel has all of the odds you're looking for, like the over-under set at 42.5 points with plus 260 odds. If you're feeling like this could be a high-scoring game, or if you feel like the Texans offense will finally get that explosion they haven't had since they took on the New England Patriots, or if you're expecting the Texans to strike first, lock in Houston to score the first touchdown at plus 165. That's great value for a team that's looking to start strong. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel. Welcome back in, Locked On Texans listeners and viewers. Before we close out today's show, as promised, we're diving into the YouTube comments. My man Jarrell Scott 5203. Sarge, you don't know this, but Jarrell is literally an everydayer. He always shows love, has always commented. But he said, I've never seen Sarge this pissed. I was too leaving the stadium. And this is from the episode where we talked about the Texans falling short in the second half against the Detroit Lions. Sarge, that was your comment. What makes getting so mad a thing for us covering this team? Like, why? Because we're both fans of opposite teams when we put our fan hat on, but being from the city of Houston, having that in our DNA, still wanting to see these players that we interact with in the locker room do well, is it because we know that the players are being held back from some of these second half play calls, or what is it that say, you know what, I'm pissed, I'm tired of it?
Well, John, the reason why I was pissed because I was tired. I was tired of seeing it. I was tired of seeing it.
Yeah,
I seen it.
Football.
Yeah, so I seen it against the Packers. I seen it against the who's the other team they lost? They lost to. I seen it against Minnesota. I seen it against the Jets. Especially, I see the Jets game is what really started it. But the Lions game took it over the top because I'm saying to myself, these aren't the Jets aren't a team you should be losing to. The Lions, if you have them down like that, it's not a team you should be losing to. One of the reasons why I was so upset was, John, we talked about it earlier. I'm like, Bobby, stop playing so conservative. Get out of your own head. You should be scoring touchdowns. You cannot beat the Detroit Lions kicking field goals, and they weren't taking.
They missed the field goals too,
right? And they weren't taking chances. So I'm saying to myself, look, John, when during the 3 years, after Bill O'Brien left and burned down the organization, and the David Culley years and Lovie Smith, like during that time, I had become accustomed to being used to it. But last season changed a lot, and so I'm looking at this team and I'm saying, you're too talented to be losing like this.
Yeah, Big Mex 777. My blame goes to D'Amico. He plays to not lose and doesn't play to win. I want to 40% agree with that, simply because I've seen on about 3 occasions now this year where we saw the team play for the field goal at the end of those games. And a lot of those games, as we know, Houston has won a handful of one-score games. But a lot of those games came down to the final drive for Houston, or maybe the final drive for the opposing team after Houston went down to kick the 3. And I do believe that I put 40% of the blame on that on D'Amico, because I do think that's a culture thing that the offense is setting that tone for. But as a head coach, you got to say, listen, we got to be aggressive here. But I also just think the defense for the Houston Texans, and by the way, we do got to give them credit for how they did Detroit last week, and then we saw Detroit come out and put up 52 on the Jags. But the defense matches the energy and character of the head coach and defensive coordinator, Matt Burke, who we don't give a lot of credit to. Offensively, I think that's where we see the downside of this team, and they do play not to lose instead of playing to win a lot this year.
And John, you look at it like this. One reason that I agree with that comment is because D'Amico has also gotten conservative. Last year on some of those 4th down plays, he was going for it and he was living with whether they got it or whether they didn't. But now it looks like he this season he has been playing conservative, and I don't know why. I don't know why it gets so conservative. But once again, I mean, Bobby calls the plays. And so if they're starting to get conservative as far as the first 3 downs, and now you're leaving it to D'Amico to make the decision on whether to go for it or not on 4th down, those other 3 plays goes on Bobby Slowik. And so that's one of the things, John, when I look at this team and I say to myself, they're like knocking on the door to taking it up to that next level, because the Detroit Lions are the best team in football. And John, they put up 52 points, not only on the Jacksonville Jaguars, they put up 52 points on the Tennessee Titans as well.
And look what they did to the Dallas Cowboys.
And at the time, the Tennessee Titans had the number one defense in the NFL. And so for the Houston Texans to have them on the ropes, that's why a lot of these fans are so upset.
Yeah, rightfully so. I mean, even Reginald Rager, 21-43. Sarge didn't even smile. I know Big Sarge. They're losing me too. Fans are just, expectations, I think, is what is getting to fans, because yes, several games Houston could have won that they should have won, in position to win, and they didn't. But it would be different if this was the last year Texans team. Like, I think everybody went into last year saying, let's see how the year turns out. Let's see how everything pans out. And it panned out, I think, great for the Texans, winning the division in an amazing fashion, right? Going down to the wire, literally the last play of the game against the Colts. And then the following week, you go blow out the team that just blew you out in Cleveland. You don't get it done against Baltimore, but that's just a better team that you ran up against with injuries that really hurt the success of that offense. And so this year, coming into this season, the expectations were high, and everybody sold the expectations. I sold them, you sold them, 610 sold them, 790 sold them, everybody sold them. And so now it's just like they drank the Kool-Aid. Kool-Aid either had tequila, Hennessy, no matter what, it had something in that Kool-Aid. They got everybody drunk with the expectation of this is our year, and every real football fan know this won't be our year if we lose a team like the Jets. This won't be our year when we take on the top team in the NFL and in the NFC, the Detroit Lions, and we lose to them how we did, or we can't be the team over 500. So everybody's in a midseason hangover period, but the Houston Texans can really be a great BC and get rid of that hangover and do a good job of just bouncing back and say, hey, you know what? We got it. But they got to do it and start it against the Dallas Cowboys, Sarge.
And let me say this real quick, John. Two things. One, I like Alizé and my Kool-Aid. That's just me. And two, I know Alizé took you back. I already know that.
Was you kicking back with Monique back in the day? Was it Monique? Monique used to always talk about Alizé.
So did Pop. So anyway, and the second thing that I want to say, John, is, hey, Houston Texans fans, don't get too down on your team. Don't be too disappointed in your team, because if you remove the Jets loss, John, what the Houston Texans did, they lost to the best division in the NFL right now. The Minnesota Vikings are a really good team. The Detroit Lions, the Chicago Bears are a really good team. The Green Bay Packers. And so the Houston Texans went toe-to-toe with 3 out of those 4 teams. They defeated the Chicago Bears, but they went toe-to-toe with the Lions. They went toe-to-toe with the Packers. And, the only game they really got blown out was in the Minnesota Vikings. But that's the best division in football. And you see what your team was able to do against them, you should be happy. You should have some type of hope for what they can do in the playoffs.
Thank you guys for watching today's episode of the Locked On Texans podcast. Please subscribe, like, and comment to the Locked On Texans podcast on YouTube and wherever you listen to your podcast. Give me a follow on Twitter at John_Hickman12. Big Sarge.
You can find me on the app formerly known as Twitter and Big Sarge Sports with a Z at the end.
Let's go get a dub, Battle Red Nation. Let's win tonight. Let's celebrate in the morning. Let's see the Houston Texans whoop up on some Dallas Cowboys. I need to see some family fights too, by the way. So until next time, ladies and gentlemen, peace.